On the last day of 2024, at 4:53 in the morning, a telecommunications company in Helsinki noticed something wrong. Data on one of its cables had stopped flowing. A fiber optic line connecting Finland to Estonia had gone dark. Within hours, Finnish border guards, defense forces, and customs authorities were mobilized. The president issued a public statement. A Chinese bulk carrier was tracked to the exact coordinates of the break. This is AxisShift. And before this video ends, you'll understand why a cable thinner than a garden hose may be the most important piece of infrastructure you've never thought about. The internet feels like a cloud, something wireless, invisible, everywhere. It isn't. 99% of all international data travels not through satellites, but through cables on the ocean floor. Your emails, your bank transfers, every video call, every financial transaction, moving at the speed of light, through more than 550 cables stretching 1.4 million kilometers across the ocean floor, enough to wrap the Earth 35 times. This is the physical internet, and almost none of it is protected. The first transatlantic telegraph cable was laid in 1858. It took 16 years and 3 attempts to make it work. But when it did, it compressed the time to send a message from New York to London from 10 days to minutes. The same logic drove every cable since. Speed, capacity, efficiency. Governments built the early internet. But today, much of its physical expansion has been financed by the companies that depend on it. Google, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft. The internet's physical backbone is privately owned by the platforms that run on top of it. Not governments, not militaries. Technology companies, increasingly determining where new international cable capacity is built and which routes carry the world's data. For most of the internet's history, cable breaks were accidents. Fishing vessels dragging anchors, earthquakes shifting the ocean floor, ships dropping cargo. But something has changed. Over the past few years, investigators have increasingly found commercial vessels operating near critical cable infrastructure at the exact time of the damage. In October 2023, a Chinese container vessel crossed the Baltic Sea. It severed a gas pipeline connecting Finland and Estonia. It cut 2 separate telecommunications cables, then sailed on toward a Russian port. In November 2024, 7 cables were cut across the Baltic in the space of 9 weeks. Each time, authorities tracked commercial vessels that had passed over the affected areas. In February 2023, the only 2 cables connecting Taiwan to the Matsu Islands were severed by Chinese fishing vessels. An entire island community lost internet access for weeks. The European Union condemned what it called deliberate destruction of critical infrastructure from the Baltic Sea to the Taiwan Strait. The United States Senate proposed legislation to treat these cables as the strategic infrastructure they are. But here is what makes this problem so difficult to solve. The cables are nearly impossible to defend. They run across the ocean floor, unguarded, accessible to anyone with a submarine or an anchor. The Baltic Sea averages just 55 meters deep. The Taiwan Strait averages 150 meters, both shallow enough for covert access. Chinese engineers have filed patents for devices specifically designed to sever undersea cables quickly and cheaply. And crucially, cutting a cable is not an act of war under international law. It is sabotage, a gray zone action, costly to the target, deniable by the actor. So what does this mean for you? Every financial transaction you make routes through this infrastructure. Every platform you use, every service your business depends on, all of it moving through cables that sit on the ocean floor in waters that are increasingly contested. The European Commission has announced funding for regional cable hubs to monitor threats. NATO has established a coordination task force for Baltic Sea cable protection. But the cables stretch 1.4 million kilometres, and there are only so many ships. The world built the most important communication infrastructure in history on the floor of the ocean. Unguarded. The internet was built to survive technical failure. It is only now learning what happens when its greatest vulnerability is intentional. Subscribe to AxisShift, because the world is turning and you should know which way.